In June 2026, a British technology company canceled a phone that was already finished on paper. Not delayed. Canceled. And the reason had nothing to do with design or demand or a factory somewhere going quiet. The reason was that the memory chips inside it now cost more than the processor and the screen put together. The company is called Nothing, and the announcement it just made is the most honest thing anyone in consumer technology has said out loud this year. To understand why that matters, you have to understand what Nothing actually is. It's a London company founded in 2021 by Carl Pei, the man who co-founded OnePlus and then walked away from it. The first product was a pair of transparent earbuds. The first phone arrived in 2022 with a back panel that lit up in patterns. Critics called it a gimmick. Buyers didn't. By early 2025, the company had crossed $1 billion in cumulative sales. Revenue had grown 150% in a single year, and it had shipped more than 5 million devices. In September 2025, Tiger Global led a $200 million round that valued Nothing at $1.3 billion. Qualcomm's venture arm came in. Google's was already there. Total funding passed $450 million. And the pitch Pei made in those rooms wasn't really about phones at all. It was about owning the last mile, the shelf, the box, the thing in your hand, so that when the next platform shift arrived, Nothing would already be standing exactly where it landed. By then, it was the only independent smartphone company to emerge anywhere in a decade. Then came January the 29th, 2026. Sitting in front of a camera for a community update, Pei said the thing nobody in this industry says. There would be no flagship this year, no Phone 4. The Phone 3 would simply carry on. He said the company had no interest in churning out a flagship every year for the sake of it. Just because the rest of the industry works a certain way, he said, doesn't mean we will. And in the same breath, he warned that prices were going up anyway. He'd been in this business 20 years. He said he had never seen memory prices move like this. 5 months later, the warning turned into a body. In June, co-founder Akis Evangelidis posted that the next CMF phone, the budget line, the one that had won Budget Phone of the Year, would not exist in 2026. Not postponed, canceled. The CMF Phone 2 Pro had launched in India at around 19,000 rupees. Rebuilding the same phone, same chip, same screen, same memory would now require 30 to 35,000. Sit with that number for a second. A 58 to 85% increase for identical hardware in 14 months in an industry where components have gotten cheaper almost every year since the 1980s. Carl Pei put the cause on the record in June. Memory had become the single most expensive component in a smartphone. More expensive than the processor, more expensive than the display. On some configurations, more than half the entire hardware bill. For the Phone 4a, he said memory costs doubled between the decision to build it and the day it launched, then doubled again. So, where did all the memory go? Into artificial intelligence. 3 companies make the world's supply: Samsung, SK Hynix, and Micron, and all 3 have been converting production lines toward high bandwidth memory, the stacked silicon that feeds every AI accelerator on Earth. Revenue per wafer for that memory runs 3 to 5 times higher than the ordinary kind. Every wafer that becomes a stack for a data center is a wafer that never becomes the chip inside a $200 phone. This isn't a shortage. A shortage ends. This is a reallocation. The numbers are brutal. Mobile memory prices have risen roughly 4 times over since September 2025. In the second quarter of 2026 alone, contract prices for the memory that goes in phones climbed 78 to 83% in 3 months. Memory used to be 10 to 15% of what a phone costs to build. It's now 30 to 40. In February, Gartner projected a 130% surge in combined memory and storage prices by the end of the year, pushing smartphone prices up 13% and dragging global shipments down 8.4%. Gartner's analysts added one line that should stop you cold. Buyers of basic smartphones will leave the market 5 times faster than premium buyers this year. The sub-$500 laptop, they think, disappears entirely by 2028. That is not a price adjustment. That is a whole category being quietly deleted while everyone argues about chatbots. And Nothing, a company built almost entirely in the space between $200 and $400, was standing directly underneath it when it came down. What followed happened fast. On July the 7th, Nothing launched the phone 4B, a new budget tier, a Snapdragon 6 Gen 4, a 6,000 milliamp hour battery, 299 pounds. 9 days later, OnePlus, the company Carl Pei built first, confirmed it would stop launching new products in Europe and North America. And on July the 24th, a report claimed Nothing itself was preparing to withdraw from 12 or more markets within weeks. Evangelidis called that report fake news within hours. He said the phone 4B sold 29,537 units on its first day, a record at its price point. And in the same post, he confirmed that Nothing is laying people off and restructuring around a new AI native business unit. Both things were true at once. Reports put the cuts at more than 100 of a roughly 800 employees. The denial and the confession arrived in the same paragraph. Here's where it gets genuinely complicated because there is a second set of numbers pointing the other way. In India, Nothing grew 105% year on year in the second quarter of 2026, making it the country's fastest growing smartphone brand for the 9th time in 10 quarters, while the Indian market overall fell 10%, its worst June quarter in 6 years. The phone 4B became Flipkart's best-selling device above 30,000 rupees on day 1. A limited edition sold out in under 2 hours. So which is it, a company collapsing or a company concentrating? Probably both. That is exactly what a squeeze looks like from the inside. Strength in the one market you invested in for years, and thin air everywhere else. Samsung and Apple can absorb a memory shock across enormous margins and enormous portfolios. A company of 800 people selling $300 phones cannot. It has one move left, and Carl Pei has been telegraphing it since 2025. In March, on a stage in Austin, he said it plainly. Apps are going to disappear. If you're a startup and your app is where your value lives, he said, that gets disrupted whether you like it or not. He described the modern phone as a museum piece, lock screens, home screens, grids of icons, an interface that hasn't meaningfully changed in 20 years. Getting coffee with a friend, he pointed out, takes 4 applications: a messenger, a map, a ride, a calendar. He wants a device that simply knows what you intend and does it. Nothing has already started building the scaffolding. Essential apps let you describe a tool in plain English and watch the phone assemble it, a countdown to your next meeting, a reminder tied to a place. Playground is where people share what they've made outside any app store. The beta opened in February 2026 under a slogan about 1 billion apps for 1 billion people. It is either the most interesting idea in consumer technology right now, or it is a very elegant way to avoid saying that the hardware business has stopped working. And this is where honesty matters more than excitement. The graveyard of AI-first hardware is already full. Humane raised $230 million for a wearable pin, shipped fewer than 10,000 of them, and sold itself to HP for $116 million. The most watched reviewer on the internet called it the worst product he had ever reviewed. Rabbit sold 100,000 units and drowned in returns. Nobody has yet built the thing that replaces the phone. Everybody has now tried. So here is what actually got announced this summer underneath the product launches and the denials and the record first day numbers. A company that built its entire identity on making good technology affordable stood up and admitted it can no longer reliably do the second part. Not because it forgot how, because the world's silicon is being carried wafer by wafer into buildings that will never fit in your pocket. The cheap phone wasn't killed by a competitor, it was outbid. And the next time you pick up a budget phone and wonder why it feels a little thinner, a little slower, a little less than the one before, remember that somewhere, a machine you will never see paid more for the memory than you paid for the phone. So where do you land on this? Is nothing about to build the first real post-smartphone device, or is this the polite beginning of a long goodbye? Drop it in the comments if you liked this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, there's a lot more coming.